The world is not suffering from a lack of effort. It's suffering from a lack of clarity. Leadership, it isn't failing for a lack of trying. It's failing for a lack of alignment. Today, we're dismantling one of the biggest myths keeping men stuck. That is, trying harder will fix it. Welcome to the first episode of the Living Beyond Average podcast, where we challenge oversimplified cliches and simplify overcomplicated ideas. The information shared will be grounded in truth, not opinion, facts, and not assumptions. Today's episode is titled The Myth of Trying Harder Will Fix It. When did trying harder start to feel like punishment in your relationship? I once believed that if I worked harder, by providing more, sacrificing more, serving more, I believed everything would essentially fix itself. But over time, I learned that effort without alignment can eventually lead to emotional exhaustion. And I can tell you right now, that is not leadership. I'm your host, Lionel Murphy. I'm a veteran, a rancher, a growing leadership coach, and a truth teller. I'm here to dismantle the myths that keep some men stuck in the emotional performance zone instead of acting as a leadership authority. Know that I speak from my lived experiences. I'm not speaking to you as a clinician, nor am I speaking to you as a medical professional. So if you feel the need, please seek qualified professionals for therapeutic or clinical care. The quote for today is, "You cannot outperform misalignment with more effort." That's a quote that I came up with during the development of this particular episode. With that said, with each episode, I will work to bring you a new and relevant quote at the top of the hour just to give you something to think about. But what does it mean? It means that effort has its place. But when the foundation is broken, whether it be emotionally, relationally, or spiritually, simply giving more effort starts to feel more like a punishment. And it starts to feel like destruction instead of repair. You see, leadership requires discernment before effort. So what do we mean when we talk about discernment? Discernment isn't about having all the answers, but it's about seeing what others might miss. It's the ability to cut through the noise and recognize truth when everybody else's opinions are loud. It's the ability to stay grounded when you feel like your emotions are running high. Discernment, it keeps you steady. Biblically, it's God giving you clarity to know His will when everything else feels cloudy. Let's talk about it. Our cliche for today is, if you just try harder, it will all work out. I see a problem with that. You see, trying harder, it can feel good. But when applied to emotional leadership, it has a tendency to create what we know as burnout. It can create frustration, and it can continue to grow emotional distance if the underlying wounds remain unaddressed. Now, how might this affect the husband? Well, you see, it can lead to him feeling exhausted from the increased effort. He might even become frustrated when he doesn't believe that his efforts are being noticed or reciprocated. This could potentially result in a quiet bitterness being developed when progress seems to be non existent. Well, see, the husband might experience things one way, and the wife, well, she experiences things a little differently. You see, she might feel emotionally unseen despite all of the husband's efforts. It could lead to her experiencing a deeper level of loneliness because her core needs still remain unaddressed. There are still things unspoken. She still feels misunderstood. She may even begin to resent the focus on performance over presence. You see, I'm a retired law enforcement officer, and before I retired, I would occasionally work overtime, and sometimes that was voluntary and other times it was not. But point being, I made extra money and I bought things, I paid for trips, and for me, I believe I was doing my part. I believed I was part of a team. My wife would plan the trips and I would show up and pay for them, and it was my belief that everything was all good. But those actions didn't really heal anything. It didn't heal those things that were unspoken. So operating that way, it caused the relationship to be quietly broken. See, I had to learn that emotional leadership is not about output. It's about being present. It means being present not only physically, but mentally and emotionally. But I have to be honest with you. It wasn't always easy because as I talk about this, I'm not sharing from theory alone. I'm trying to be transparent. And so I'm going to share something that has not been widely shared because I am a private person. But I feel my story may help someone. You see, I've personally been diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD as it's known. You see, my years in law enforcement and in military service brought experiences that have left what I'll refer to as a residue that many don't fully understand. I'm still trying to understand it myself. You see, it can bring about depression, guilt, anxiety, sometimes even fear and anger. It sometimes keeps me mentally disconnected from the world. There have been times when my lack of presence, it wasn't because I didn't care. It wasn't because I didn't love my wife or my family. Oftentimes it was because I simply just didn't know how to be present. I didn't know how to be present mentally or emotionally. And that was despite my body being right there in the room. And see, that's the tension that many men live in. And it's not from a lack of effort, but from an unaddressed emotional weight that can cloud connections. When PTSD or trauma is involved, being present, it takes on a different kind of work. Not trying harder, but getting help, the tools, and the support that is needed to show up as your whole self. This is why emotional leadership requires courage. Not to perform, but to confront the wounds that prevent many of us from fully engaging with those we love. And full clarity, PTSD doesn't just affect men, it affects women as well. And when I talk about that, I would say that that's leadership. Because leadership is not about perfection, it's about ownership. It's about accountability. While my journey is uniquely marked by my own experiences with trauma, what I've come to realize is that many men, whether they carry trauma or not, they're often faced with a similar struggle when it comes to emotional leadership. The truth is, some men, not all, often default to wanting to fix things or perform in a way that they think their wife might need them to. But it's just that, a performance. But see, many emotional wounds require vulnerability over productivity. You see, the woman in that same scenario, they often experience emotional safety through connection, not effort. They long to be seen, not just simply served. I say the real leadership move is when we learn to lead emotionally, not just functionally. We learn to ask better questions before we increase our efforts. I believe we could all benefit from relearning what true presence really looks like. And we all need to know that for our own personal relationships. Especially in this day and age of cell phones and social media, it's real easy to get stuck in a pattern of disconnect. But it takes effort and willingness to first recognize what your challenges are. It takes effort to bring back that connection and healing. So I'll say, put the phone down, look up, and pay attention. If you really want to know if your efforts are hitting home, I'd say ask your loved one if your actions feel emotionally connecting to them. Or does it just feel like you're going through the motions? Try to commit to at least one emotional connecting act. I'm talking about one that is not tied to performance. Things like active listening, spending quality time, or even working on being more vulnerable. This goes for both men and women. But for this to work, you both have to be willing to create that safe space for one another. A space that is filled with love and no judgment. A space where sensitive information can be shared without fear of it being weaponized later. It might be helpful to even journal your emotional patterns. Just something to reflect back on. This might help you recognize when you're trying to perform or fix things instead of working to rebuild that connection. So this is how I want you to apply what we've learned this week. This week, I want you to pay attention to where you might be trying harder without first seeking alignment. Ask yourself, is my increased effort bringing us closer, or is it just masking unresolved issues? Have I avoided vulnerability in favor of performance? Where can I create emotional presence this week instead of offering material solutions? Pick one act of emotional presence to practice this week. So as we close, I will leave you with this. Leadership isn't about trying harder. It's about trying differently. So this week, I challenge you to lead in your relationship through presence and love, not just performance. If you're interested in the references used to inform this episode, you can find them in the captions. Until next we meet, I want you to lead with integrity, ride with confidence, and live beyond average.